It's time for another WrestlePlanet news update as a WWE Hall of Famer is set to return to the ring, a former WWE star returns to AEW, and another former champion has been released from WWE. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Last night, AEW would hold the final episode of Dynamite on the TNT network before their move to TBS next week, and the show would see a number of returns. The first of which came at the start of the show, as legendary announcer Jim Ross would once again take his spot at the commentary desk following his recent battle with skin cancer. Over the past several weeks, JR has undergone 22 radiation treatments and has been absent because of this. The return follows the recent announcement on Twitter by Jim himself, who would reveal that he is now cancer-free and ready to work. Ross would walk out to his own entrance music to open the show and would receive a big shout out from CM Punk during his promo later in the night, who called him the best to ever do it. It's great to see JR back where he belongs, behind the desk, and it's even better to hear that his cancer is now cleared. Next up, we have some more AEW health news as a member of the talent roster has tested positive for the virus. WWE Hall of Famer and AEW manager Jake the Snake Roberts would take to Twitter last night to reveal, "I've waited so long. Actually thought I was bulletproof. Yes, I've gotten C19. Roberts would go on to reveal that he has been kept away from television due to his status as high risk, before adding that he thinks he got sick from family visits or while shopping, and he would say, "Yes, after not going to do my AEW work for nearly 3 months. Tony Khan knows I'm high risk and has gone above and beyond all expectations trying to keep everyone safe. Pretty sure I got it from family or when I was out shopping." Jake has been away from AEW whilst recovering from foot surgery, whilst his on-screen client Lance Archer has been off TV ever since suffering a concussion during a match against Eddie Kingston on Dynamite in October. Roberts is considered high risk when it comes to the virus due to him suffering from COPD, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which is a lung issue that makes it harder to breathe. Hopefully Jake can pull through unscathed despite his pre-existing conditions, and we'll keep you updated on his health in future news videos. Next up, we have some news regarding another veteran of the wrestling business who is now retired. AEW producer Keith Mitchell would produce his final wrestling show last night after a 40-year-long career in the business, having worked for a number of top promotions. AEW president Tony Khan would take to Twitter before last night's show to break the news, and he would say, "Tonight's the last AEW Dynamite ever on TNT, and this event New Year's Smash is very special as this will be the final wrestling event produced by the great Keith Mitchell in his amazing 40-year career spanning world-class WCW, Impact, and AEW. Let's make Keith's retirement show a smash." Keith would start his career in the 80s where he began working for World Class Championship Wrestling, the home of the legendary feud between the Von Erichs and the Fabulous Freebirds. He would go on to work for WCW through their peak, as well as Impact Wrestling and finally All Elite Wrestling. Mitchell has been an unsung hero of wrestling, having produced some of the most important wrestling shows in history, and I wish him all the best in his retirement. This week, former NXT champion and former WWE superstar Karrion Kross would appear on Renee Paquette's Oral Sessions podcast alongside his fiancée Scarlett Bordeaux to discuss his botched main roster call-up earlier this year. Kross was in the midst of a highly praised run as NXT champion with Scarlett as his valet before he was called up to Raw, losing to Jeff Hardy in less than 2 minutes upon his debut with no Scarlett in sight. Kross would talk of the circumstances around his debut, and he would say, "When I went up and they asked me to do the match with Jeff and put him over, I was like, sure, that's fine. I grew up a fan of Jeff, and then getting to meet Jeff and him being really cool was an awesome experience to me. He's one of the coolest people I've ever met. So I was like, that's fine, and one of the agents came in and said, there's a long-term plan for this, don't sweat it. I do my entrance and I get out there. The ref comes to me and goes, hey, your 10-minute match is down to 90 seconds. The first time we're working on television. We don't really know each other in the ring, our rhythm. They come back from commercials and I'm trying not to laugh. If you go back and watch it, I'm smiling, closed mouth, trying to hold it back. Soon as Jeff got in the ring, I just snatched him and told him what we needed to do, and that was it. As we know, Kross's main roster run wouldn't get any better as his manager Scarlett, who was a huge part of his presentation in NXT, would continue to be absent, and on top of that, he would be given a terrible entrance outfit. Kross would add that things just didn't feel right, and he would say, "When I went back to NXT the next day, I spoke to someone there, and I just said, look, my biggest fear right now, my biggest phobia is there's a hole being dug for me, and I'm nervous that if I'm not permitted to crawl out of it myself and people absolve themselves of creating the situation, I'm not going to return as an investment. I'm going to get fired. So what do you think I should do right now? Because part of this business is doing what you're told. My intuition, intuitively, was telling me that everything was off. Everything felt wrong and I felt something bad coming, like 4 months before it happened. But everyone I was talking to was like, oh no, everybody loves you, you have no problems, yada yada yada. But I felt it coming. I tried to, as professionally, politely as I could, talk to people in the chain of command about that. And I just tried to be a good sport about everything. Kross's vision would eventually become true with him being released in early November, and he is set to become a free agent on February 2nd when his non-compete clause expires. This week, WWE Hall of Famer Sean Waltman, also known as X-Pac, would reveal that he is medically cleared to return to the ring, with him seemingly intending on becoming active once again. Waltman would announce last year that he had been cured of hepatitis C and that he was set to undergo surgery to repair a torn ACL from 2009. In an update during WWE's sideshow The Bump, Waltman revealed that he is cleared to return, and he would say, "My surgery gave me the go-ahead, I just got the green light to get back in the ring. I'm just going to get into better and better shape. I'll be ring ready at the beginning of next year, and in case my phone rings." A number of wrestlers have reacted to the news, including WWE star Ricochet, who has called Waltman out for a match. AEW's Dax Harwood of FTR would also tell Sean that AEW is the place for one last match, and he would tweet, "If he wants one last great match, he knows who to call, AEW wrestlers." It's unclear if WWE or AEW have any interest in bringing Waltman into the fold, although he has been involved in a war of words with GCW and Impact Wrestling star Matt Cardona, who would say that the only way people want to see X-Pac is in wrestling figure form. Waltman would respond by tweeting a gif of him hitting a clean spinning heel kick on Taka Michinoku, asking if Cardona wants one too. Whilst a full-time WWE or AEW stint seems unlikely outside of a Royal Rumble or Casino Battle Royal appearance, a match against a heel Cardona in GCW does seem like a realistic option, with him perhaps set for one last run on the Indies. And let's go to another story from last night's episode of AEW Dynamite, as we saw the AEW return of a former WWE superstar. The show would see the last semi-final of the AEW TBS Championship tournament between Jade Cargill and Thunder Rosa, with the winner facing Ruby Soho next week in the finals to crown the first champion. In the closing sequence of the match, a mystery woman would interfere wearing a mask and a hood, helping Jade Cargill score the victory. The woman would then reveal herself to be Mercedes Martinez, who was released from WWE this past August. This marks Martinez's third AEW appearance, having wrestled for the company in 2019 before ultimately signing with WWE as part of the NXT brand. She would then move on to the main roster as part of the failed Retribution stable before requesting that she be taken out of the group. She would return to NXT before being released, having appeared in Impact Wrestling since then. During her previous stint in AEW, Mercedes would appear as the Joker in the first Women's Casino Battle Royale at All Out 2019, before teaming with Big Swole to take on Ali and Sadie Gibbs on an episode of Dark 2 months later, a match which she would lose. Mercedes brings a ton of experience and talent to the AEW women's roster and is a smart addition to the company. For now, it seems she will be aligned with Jade Cargill and will likely play a part in the TBS finals next week, looking to help Cargill topple Ruby Soho to be crowned the inaugural champion. And finally, we have a story regarding what will likely be the last of many WWE releases in 2021. According to both Fightful and PW Insider, SmackDown superstar Toni Storm has requested her release from the company, which was subsequently granted. The star would be present in Baltimore, the home of last night's live event, before flying herself home. A statement was issued to talent yesterday afternoon regarding the news, with Storm being the only one named. In an update from Fightful, it is said that many people within WWE were blindsided by the news, with it being noted by one source that it would have been difficult for WWE to justify not granting her release, especially after several rounds of budget cuts in recent times. Toni has been with WWE since the inaugural Mae Young Classic in 2017, going on to work at the WWE United Kingdom title tournament show before winning the second Mae Young Classic at the Evolution pay-per-view in 2018. She would be moved to NXT UK later that year, going on to win the brand's women's title before a switch to NXT. She'd then be called up to the main roster in July 2021, receiving a push as a contender for the SmackDown Women's title. It's currently unknown what the future holds for Toni Storm, but considering the release was her call, it's likely that she does have a battle plan in place. Storm has a ton of experience on the independent wrestling scene in companies such as Progress, Stardom, and WXW, and becomes one of the hottest free agents on the market, with every top company likely vying for her services. That said, AEW Women's Champion Dr. Britt Baker DMD has already got the internet talking by posting a photo of Toni on her Twitter account, something many have assumed means she's interested in a match between the two, a match which I'm sure we'd all be happy to see. But let me know, what do you think the future holds for Toni Storm? Let me know in the comments down below. And before you go, make sure you check out my video where I discuss 12 of the most obscure WWE appearances by AEW wrestlers.